Happy Tie-Dye Tuesday. It's not been that long since you heard my voice because hopefully you watched the weekly language review video before you watched this one, which means you heard my hauntingly beautiful voice. You just did not see my terribly beautiful face. So let's go ahead and go started with Math Minute today. Math Minute number 22. This is what it looks like just in case for some reason you weren't quite sure. So here's what we've got going on. If it is 5:12 now, what time was it 24 minutes ago? So for me, my thought process is, okay, I have to go from 5:12 and I got to go backwards. So if I go backwards to 5 o'clock, that's going to take away 12 minutes. So now I'm looking at 12 minutes. And then if I go back 10 minutes, now I'm at 4:50. And now I'm left with 2 minutes. So if I go backwards 2 more minutes, I am at 4:48. So the answer is 4:48. Doesn't matter if it's AM or PM, it's not asking for that. It really just wants to make sure you understand that on a clock, we're talking about 60-minute intervals instead of 100, like we often feel like we do. So this is 4:48. Which of the following letters only has one line of symmetry? As written, the letter with one line of symmetry is E. There is no way for us to split F and be able to get the identical thing on the other side of the split. And the same with N. So it's just E. We have 1/3 of 9. So again, I want you to start remembering that of in math means multiplication. So basically what I'm looking at here is and I'm going to do my work over here just so that I can write the answer back here. 1/3 of 9. And if you guys remember, 9 is really 9 over 1. I have 9 whole pizzas. And I'm going to multiply across the top and across the bottom. 9 times 1 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. As you get better at doing this kind of a problem, you'll almost instantaneously see that 1/3 of 9 is going to become 9 divided by 3, and that is 3. Or 9, 1/3. So what is 9 divided by 3? It's 3, and one of those 3's is just 3. All right, it is Tie-Dye Tuesday, so I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to go again across the numerator and across the denominators and just multiply. Remember, this cute little sign right here means multiplication. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 5 times 7 is 35. There is no number that goes into both top and bottom. Therefore, we are in our simplest form, 4/35. All right, sticking with my red pen here. Oh, I have some awesome distribution. I can do this as distributive or I can do this as order of operations. I'm going to do it in both ways just so that we're constantly practicing that distributive property. So if I were to distribute, I'm going to draw my arrows so that I know what I'm multiplying. So the first thing I'm going to multiply here is 4 times 5. And then I'm going to add that to my second distribution, which is 4 times 11. 4 times 5 is 20, and 4 times 11 is 44. And the answer that I get here is 64. So let me use my pink pen here, using the distributive property, I have discovered that the answer is 64. Now I can use order of ops. I'll switch colors again just to show that these are different. Order of ops to do the same thing. Order of operations would say that I have to do what's in the parentheses first. So 5 plus 11 is really 16. So now I have 4 times 16. And 16 times 4 is 64. And again, I'll be honest with you, my first thought was if I didn't know what 4 times 16 was off the top of my head, I wouldn't have even done it this way. I would have said, okay, I can add what's inside and get 16, and now I can do 4 times 10 is 40, and 4 times 6 is 24. 40 plus 24 is 64. So I always like to break it down into those tens, multiples of 10, and then multiply the ones and then add those two together. That always just seems to be easier for me. But again, it's always about what makes you feel the most confident in your answer. So we're going to look at each of these rows independently. So I've got 1, then 2, then 5, then 10. And so, oh, I'm sorry. I just went down the column. I apologize. We're going across. So for me, even though I know I said it incorrectly, but for me, I think of rows as when you're going to the movie theater, you go down the row to find your seat. So you're shuffling sideways. When we're looking at the front of a building, the front of a building is held up by a column. So that means it goes up and down. So in this case, it's asking about rows. So we're going across. And just again, to make sure I don't make that same mistake, I'm going to draw the lines to separate the rows. In this case, I know I have 1 plus 1 happens to equal 2. Let's see if it works for the same. 2 plus 3 does equal 5. 5 plus 10 does equal 15. And 10 plus 10 does equal 20. So the third number in each of these rows is found by adding the first two. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you should be practicing reading cursive. Novels are not typically written in cursive or anything like that, so you constantly are given a regular print. But in the business world and things of that nature, especially if grandma's writing you a note and sending it in the mail, you're probably likely to see it in cursive. So you do need to practice reading cursive on a regular basis. Find the perimeter to the shape to the right. I'm going to switch colors again. Perimeter means plus. It means we're going to add these outside edges. So we're going to add 8 plus 7 plus 5 plus 10. The order I put them in was not arbitrary. I did it because I know for me what's easiest to add. But again, remember that we have the commutative property of addition. Commutative property of addition means it does not matter the order in which I add numbers as long as I'm just adding. If I'm adding numbers, no matter what order I add them in, I will get the exact same answer. Again, that's called the commutative property of addition. There's also the commutative property of multiplication. And again, it's the same idea. If I drive from home to school and from school home, I take the same path, no matter which direction I'm going. And it gets me to my destination. So again, no matter which direction you're driving, you're going to get to the same spot. So 8 plus 7 is 15. That's the reason I put the 8 and the 7 next to each other, because then 15 plus 5 is 20, and 20 plus 10 is 30. And when there is a unit here, and so I need to maintain that unit of measurement. So my answer technically is 30 centimeters. Please try to always identify what you're talking about. Especially because if this were something you were building a fence, well, centimeters isn't very big. Maybe you're building the fence for an ant farm. But no matter how you look at it, if you were just to say, oh, I need to build a fence and it has to be 30, well, maybe somebody would think you're talking about your actual house, and they would think 30 yards or 30 feet. That's a lot different than 30 centimeters. So you always, 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 always want to include the unit of measurement. Find the sum of the second shaded column. So they went ahead and they shaded the column. I added the arrow for you guys just as a reminder that we are talking about columns. Remember, columns hold things up, so they go from top to bottom. We're looking for the sum. Sum means addition. So I have 2 plus 8 is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. So again, that was 2 plus 8, which is 10, plus 3, which is 13. 9 and 10 are straightforward computation. So for number 9, 16 divided by 4 is 4. Remember, you have to be 4 to drive, or I'm sorry, you have to be 16 to drive a 4 by 4. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. Please, please, please be very careful with how quickly you answer these questions, because even as I was answering them right now, I had to stop and think a little bit because sometimes I go too quickly and I give the incorrect answer. So you got to be careful there. All right, 34 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. I bring down the 2. I carry the 1 to the tens place. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. And again, if I were doing this in my head, did not have pen and paper in front of me, I would do 3 times 30, which would be 90, and 3 times 4, which would be 12, and 90 plus 12 is 102. Again, I always try to keep going back to that distributive property because I want you to understand why we teach it and why it's important in your life. 56 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Bring down my 4. I carry the 2 to the tens place. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. So my answer is 224. But again, if I did not have pen and paper, if I asked you to mentally multiply 56 times 4, I would hope that you would know, well, 4 times 50 is 200. And 4 times 6 is 24. And 200 plus 24 is 224. So just another reminder as to why we do that distributive property and why it is so important and heavily taught. All right, guys, that was your math minute. I know it says math minute, but it took 12 minutes to explain. Sorry.